Morning, y'alls. It's me, Dr. E, again, here to help you out with Module 2, Culture in Context. This is important, right? I mean, as archaeologists, we're all about trying to understand the culture of past societies, which means the context that it's in is really important to us. Okay. So yeah, for this overview video, I'm going to be kind of going over some key concepts from our Chapter 6 readings, pointing out some, I don't know, some ethical considerations as I sit here and sip my morning coffee. So, yeah, let's see here. Before I dive into Chapter 6, I got to say, make sure you check out the video about Cooper's Ferry. All right, that's here in Oregon, where I am. I've been there many a time. I know Lauren Davis, when I did my master's in applied anthropology. He and I, knew each other. It's kind of cool that we get to use his video for this class, and what he outlines in the video about deposition, alluvial, aeolial, is really important stuff. And not only that, but it's a field school that you see going on in the background, right? And so that'll give you a taste of what field school's like. And you can actually see the stratigraphy of various deposition that he's talking about. So I don't know. I like being able to see those sorts of things. It's a lot easier to understand those concepts when you get to see it, right, and hear it rather than just read it. So anyway, 2 thumbs up for Lauren Davis in his video about Cooper's Ferry. Really cool stuff, by the way. Okay, so gonna dive on into Chapter 6 here, Concept of Culture. All right. Now, hopefully you all have taken an Intro to Anthropology course, either Intro to Cultural or Intro to Anthropology. Because I don't want to sit here and try to explain the concept of culture ad nauseum. But I will say the Sir Edward Tyler's quote, his definition of culture, is perhaps one of the most used to this day. Excuse me. And that is that complex whole which includes knowledge, belief, art, morals, law, custom, and any other capabilities and habits acquired by man as a member of society. Wow, you saw my air quotes, man. Let's strike man out of there and say people, humans. Yeah, humanity. Even that has the man, the gendered biased perspective, which frankly I'm really cheeses my biscuits. It is a fundamental issue in anthropology, both archaeological, biological, cultural, linguistic. Yeah. But I don't want to go off on a diatribe about that right now. Key things to take from this concept of culture is, first, we got to understand that human beings, Homo sapiens sapiens, right, and all prior models, as I like to call them, they're biological organisms, all right? People like to forget that we are a critter. Okay, somehow we like to distance ourselves and disassociate ourselves from the natural kingdom, but big heads up, we are a biological organism. No denying it, okay? However, unlike other biological organisms, we got this thing called culture, all right? And it's the primary means of adaptation to our environment, okay? So one might say, oh, well, what about evolution via natural selection? Well, that's working on a biological process, and that is constantly happening. That's not what I'm talking about here, right? That's us growing hair. That's us, developing bipedalism. That's us, excuse me, I'm dying right now. The evolution of our brain. We can look at the cranial capacity of past hominins and, see differences and changes, right? That is not culture, right? That's all biological. That all falls under the evolutionary side of things. Culture is the stuff that we do to survive, right? And people might be like, well, how's that different from the evolution? Well, we make things. We use this, right, as this abstract computer that allows us to take ideas, right, and make them real. That's one way that I like to put it. We go from early rabbit sticks, kind of like just a bent stick that you wing, and that's a great way to go catch food. But somebody had to literally think, I can take this stick and I can fling it at that critter, and hopefully I'll hit it, and then I can eat it. Okay, that's culture. Okay. Getting even more complicated is, we build structures. We protect ourselves from our environment. We make clothing. All those things are cultural reflections. So I just want to make sure that we got a real clear difference between biological evolution, right, which is constant, is happening, be it if you take a gradualism perspective or a punctuated equilibrium perspective, it's still happening. But simultaneously, and sometimes in relation to those biological changes, right, we're also having cultural change, right? And that's the thing. Culture is not static, right? It's not fixed. It's dynamic. It's extrasomatic. It doesn't come from within you. It comes from without. You're taught it. It's learned. It's shared. Okay? Because if you're just out there throwing sticks around in the bush, well, guess what? That's not really culture. You got to have other groups that do the same, or other folks that do the same thing. Those are some good ideas, kind of formulations on how to understand culture, right, in the culture context. Now, I got to take a second and air my grievances about a line in our text. Okay, I'll do this from time to time. I feel it's my duty as an anthropologist to point these things out. There's a line in there that says something about less advanced societies and higher civilizations. Oof! Ouch! Wow, I'm trying to not just go off the deep end here. Beyond ethnocentric, okay. There's many different ways that you can talk about groups, but talking about groups this way, right? It presupposes there's some hierarchy, okay, and that is complete bunk. Okay, let me tell you, I've lived and worked with traditional hunters, and people might call them, a less advanced society. No freaking way. Just because we have internet doesn't make us more advanced. While we might think about it this way, traditional hunters, they have to have an intimate knowledge of their environment. All the animals, all the trees, all the plants, everything. Can you say that about your environment? Right? The point is that they focus on different things. They might highlight the value of different things, right? And for some reason, we like to judge those. And I'm going to stress, don't go there. Just avoid that like the plague, right? You can talk about how societies have more or greater layers of complexity, okay? But even that's a little, I am of the school that there is no difference between, a group of hunter-gatherers and, intellectually speaking, that's what I'm talking about here, and that's what we got to be really careful about, all right? Because for some reason we associate value and judge it between what we see as being more developed or less developed. And I got to tell you, technologically speaking, that doesn't necessarily measure up, because to an archaeologist, anthropologist, technology is knowledge, skills, and tools, right? As such, there's no difference between a bow and arrow and a computer. They're just pieces of technology that were developed by different groups to be used for different things. You see how I put that in more relative terms? That's what I suggest doing. Okay, enough of my beef with less developed, less advanced, and higher civilizations and ethnocentric tendencies in the discipline. Moving on here. Looking at my notes. Oh, yeah. Be sure to read over cultural processes and cultural systems, right? Processes are how societies change through time, whereas cultural systems are really looking at the culture and the environment and their linkages, their articulation, how they're connected and interwoven. And along with that sort of idea, if you see change in one, there we go. I'm a little more centered. Change in one thing affects change in another thing. Okay, it's a much more holistic perspective. There's that word again, holism. Okay, moving on here. Models of change. Models of culture. We got normative, functional, processual, post-processual. We've talked about processual and post-processual, so I'm not going to focus on those too much. But normative, we got to thank Franz Boas, father of American anthropology, and he was all about patterns of culture. All right, we see this pattern here, and that's different than this pattern over here. That's a very normative approach, or normative perspective. Then we got functional, thanks to Bronislaw Malinowski. All right, Malinowski never gets the credit that he deserves. Functionalism is perhaps one of the most influential theoretical concepts in anthropology, even to this day, right, in this postmodern era that we live in, because still people are using particular modes of production. Okay, think cultural ecology. You have a horticultural based society. All right, they're living directly from their environment. All right, they're not using intensive agriculture. They're digging gardens by hand, and the entire society, the political system, kinship systems, all of that will tend to be oriented around supporting that primary mode of production. Okay, or subsistence system is another way you could think of it. That's functionalism. You can think the parts make up the whole. And again, change in one will affect change in others, right? Because it's a functional system, right? If you change one aspect of it, its function changes. Let's see here. Processual, yeah. It's all about testing theories, right? Analysis of the conditions of change. That's what it tends to focus on. And the post-processual, all about interpretation. Interpretation of the cultural system at hand. And as you can imagine, interpretation is open to interpretation. Okay, but we try to base it on disciplinary logic and understandings. In fact, a good post-processualist will address both normative, functional, and processual understandings of the thing they're looking at, because that might actually help them gain a better interpretation of the thing. All right. Hope that makes sense. What I suggest is that while we may be in a post-processual era, that doesn't mean that we still don't use normative, functional, and processual concepts. We still do, all right? Some more than others. It's a varied tapestry. It's a vast spectrum. But yeah, it's a good thing to keep in mind. Okay. Moving on. Matrix in provenance. All right. So matrix is the physical substance that surrounds the thing, the item, the artifact, the find. All right. And that's the type of soil it's in. Anybody heard of Munsell? Munsell charts, right? This is a color and grit description of soils. Fun stuff. Yeah, I've spent many hours in a lab sitting there with soil samples and my Munsell charts, and ascribing, describing, not ascribing, describing the soil types that things are found in. Okay, so matrix, it's the physical stuff that the artifact is found in. Provenance. Think of that as its three-dimensional, even fourth-dimensional position, in time and space. And so we have principles of association. What's it found with? Is there other stuff present, like a burial? Okay, is there just a skeleton in there, or are there other things as well? Well, those other things that are in there, we can associate them with the burial, unless there are other clear indications that it's been disturbed and somebody, was looting a grave and cracked open a Coke and dropped the bottle cap in there. Okay, that's actually a real world example. Okay, so yeah, we also have superposition. This is the stratigraphy, right? And this is based on the geological understanding that we have deposition, right, over sites. Well, there can also be erosion, but for right now, we're just going to talk about deposition. That layers upon layers upon layers get built up. Okay. Incidentally, that video about Cooper's Ferry got a great example there. They show you, these two clear, horizons in the stratigraphy. One that is alluvial deposition and the other that's aeolian deposition. And they're strikingly clear. Okay. There's no way that the river flooded and got underneath the aeolian deposition. It just doesn't happen that way, right? Things get built up from on top. Now, that's the basic concept, but we also have notions of disturbance. What if somebody comes along, right? So there was some prehistoric settlement, right? And more layers of deposition have been added, and now we're up here to my eye level, and some, 18th century farmer comes and builds his farmstead on top. Well, they might actually cause disturbances in the previous layers of deposition. So those are all sorts of things that we have to be really mindful of, okay? And with practice and a good field school or two, you can learn to read the stratigraphy and the landscape like reading a book. One of my... this sounds a little out there, but here in Oregon, we have incredible geomorphology, right? Like, one of my favorite things, or my favorite road in the world, is Highway 20. Look it up on a map. It cuts from the coast all the way over to the Idaho border. And it literally, right through, across, bisects the state, east to west. And if you ever drive that road, you're going to see things that you've never seen before. I don't know if you can look it up on like Google Earth or something like that, but actually you probably can. Check it out on Google Earth. You'll see what I'm talking about. You can get the Landsat images, and it'll show you the topography and the changes. It's incredible. I geek out every time I drive that road. I'm just like, oh, look at that! Oh my gosh! So, yeah. Geomorphology, cool stuff. Excuse me, I'm getting over a bit of a cold. Don't mean to cough in your ears. Looking at my notes, other things. Yeah, archaeological context. Okay, it's more than just matrix and provenance. That we got to take into consideration the orientation, how is it positive, and subsequent subsequent history of the find, everything that's happened to it. How has it been affected since its creation, right, or since its deposition, since it was deposited, since it went into the ground. Yeah, and I'm not going to take a bunch of time to go over that right now, but you should definitely pay attention to primary and secondary context. That connects to that sort of disturbance stuff that I was talking about earlier. And spatial context, right? There's four basic aspects to it, and they all kind of speak to cultural behavior. We got the artifact, we got structures, we got sites, and we have regions. And you can think of these as levels that levels of complexity. Finding an artifact. Find a bunch of artifacts. Oh, you might have a site. One of the most common types of sites that I come across doing survey work are probably what we call campsites. Settlements, they tend to be kind of fewer and in between, but you'll tend to find lots of prehistoric campsites where maybe somebody was out hunting, they bagged their game, they sat there, they butchered it out, and you'll often find a lithics, spread where they've napped their stone tools. And that's all you'll find, right? I'm not going to get into significance or anything, but that's kind of pretty common, and that gives you an idea of like the artifact. There might be a broken biface scraper or something like that, and that can be a site. A structure. Wow. If they built things, that gets really cool, because then we're talking about households or specialized buildings. And then you might have a full settlement, and you might be able to discern patterns from that one location and see similar patterns in a broader region. Okay, so that's all about spatial context. Okay, so you can think of it as from the individual artifact to broader regions. On a side note, before I wrap up this little video, I think I shared that my family does flint knapping. My kids are learning and everything. And check this out. This is a chunk of obsidian from Glass Butte out in Central Oregon. And this is, hold on here, everything's backwards. This is a class. This is not old. Okay, this is recently made. My son and I made these together. He's learning how to flint knap, but this is a perfect example of a cobble scraper. This was a nodule of obsidian that essentially got whacked in half, chink, and then they came and they touched it up, and you can see these nice flake scars on both sides. That makes it bifaced. Here's another one. This was actually a point in the making, and then it got a hinge fracture. That's what you call that. And rather than chuck it because it's good obsidian, you turned it into a biface scraper. Okay, and this could even be hafted. You could put this on a stick and use that to scrape hides. You could use it as an adze and actually work wood, bone, whatever. Last one I'm going to show you here. This is a miniature Acheulean hand axe. Right? It's actually sized for my son. And it's out of gorgeous material. This is this beautiful mahogany obsidian, high mahogany content. Right? That's that red. Gorgeous stuff. But this is kind of much more of a European sort of style that you might find with Cro-Magnon, Neanderthal, stuff like that. And it's a prehistoric Swiss Army knife. You can use this to do just about anything, from butcher out an animal to cut down a tree. Yeah, dig a hole in the ground if you want. Cool thing here, you can still see a little cortex left on it. So that is the exterior of the material that has been oxidized, right? And it clearly looks different from areas that have been worked, right? Dull and brown, nice and shiny. Anyway, I just thought I'd share them, show you how into all this that I am. By the way, flint napping is really fun. I don't know why we call it flint napping, because we use all sorts of materials other than flint, but it tends to be what most folks call it. Yeah, in fact, if you want a hobby, I suggest it. It's really meditative, sitting there banging rocks together. Yeah. Oh, warning: you will cut yourself. Anyway, that's where I'm going to leave this this kind of overview video. I'm going to be doing others for our discussion and our assignments, so be sure to check those out. And, you know, the written portion of my announcement, you know, I put the due dates and stuff like that in there and special reminders. Yeah, feel free to post any questions to the general questions forum, email me, call me, text me, Skype me. I am here at your service. I'm your walking, talking anthropological resource. I'll see you all on the discussion boards. Take care.